I was the third-generation heir to Harrington's, our family restaurant, that had been serving the finest steaks in Boston since my grandfather Thomas opened it in 1967. My brother Kyle and I grew up between those tables, learning the business from washing dishes to managing staff. Everyone assumed I would take over someday. I had the experience, dedication, and my fiancée Amanda and I were planning our wedding at the restaurant in just 3 months. Something felt off lately, though. Amanda was constantly texting when we were together, and Kyle was visiting the restaurant more often than usual. Truer words were never spoken than when people say, "You never see the betrayal coming." Before I share the biggest shock of my life, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you enjoy real stories about standing tall after the cruelest betrayals life can throw at you. Harrington's wasn't just a restaurant, it was our family legacy. The dark mahogany panels, the brass fixtures, and the framed photos chronicling 57 years of Boston history made every customer feel like they were part of something special. My grandfather Thomas started with just 8 tables and his secret seasoning blend. By the time my father William took over, Harrington's was the go-to celebration spot for local politicians, athletes, and generations of Bostonians marking life milestones. I practically grew up in that kitchen. At 12, I was washing dishes after school. By 16, I could prep with the line cooks. Through college, I worked every position from host to bartender. After graduating with my business degree, I became the general manager, implementing modern systems while preserving the traditions that made us special. The restaurant was in my blood, and everyone, including my father, acknowledged I was being groomed to take over. Kyle was different. 3 years younger than me, he always had a charm that drew people in. He could talk his way out of trouble with a smile, while I was the responsible one. We were close growing up, spent summers playing baseball in the neighborhood league, and went fishing with our grandfather at his lake house every August until he passed when I was 15. Kyle was smart, maybe even brilliant, but lacked patience. He started college 3 times, but never finished a degree, bounced between sales jobs, and had a new business idea every few months. Dad always made excuses for Kyle. He was the special one who needed extra attention, the one with untapped potential. When Kyle dropped out of college the first time, Dad bought him a car to cheer him up. When he quit his 3rd job in 2 years, Dad gave him money to invest in cryptocurrency, which he promptly lost. I never resented this treatment because I understood Kyle struggled to find his place. Besides, I had the restaurant, and to me that was everything. I met Amanda during a busy Saturday service 2 years ago. She came in with friends, but returned alone the next week, sitting at the bar and asking thoughtful questions about our wine selection. Amanda worked in fashion marketing, had traveled extensively, and matched my ambition with her own. She was strikingly beautiful with her dark hair and green eyes, but it was her sharp mind that drew me in. Our first date lasted until 3 in the morning, just talking about everything from business philosophy to our favorite books. Amanda moved in 6 months ago, and I proposed at Christmas. We were planning a September wedding at the restaurant with a menu featuring all our classics plus some special additions. Dad was thrilled, especially since Amanda took genuine interest in the family business, often offering marketing suggestions. As a wedding present, Dad promised us the lake house where Kyle and I had spent summers with our grandfather. It needed renovation, but the location was perfect, and the sentimental value made it special. The first signs something was wrong appeared gradually. Amanda started working late, more often canceling our dinner plans last minute. She grew distant, less enthusiastic about wedding planning. I chalked it up to work stress until Kyle began showing up at the restaurant more frequently, usually when Amanda was meeting me after work. I noticed them talking quietly in corners, conversations that stopped when I approached. One evening, Amanda was unusually defensive. When I asked about a text notification, I glimpsed on her phone. She started password, locking her phone, something she had never done before. Kyle, meanwhile, suddenly took interest in the restaurant, asking questions about operations and finances, topics he had always found boring. I told myself I was being paranoid. Amanda loved me. Kyle was my brother. There had to be a reasonable explanation. Then came the night everything fell apart. We had a private event that ended earlier than expected, so I closed up and headed home around 10:32 hours before Amanda expected me. When I got to our apartment, I heard voices from our home office. The door was partially open, and I recognized Kyle and Amanda talking. I was about to announce myself when I heard Amanda's words that stopped me cold. "I am pregnant. It is definitely yours, not Doug's." Kyle's response was equally devastating. "I will take care of this. We need to tell Doug." I pushed the door open, finding them sitting close together on the small office sofa. Amanda jumped up, her face draining of color. Kyle remained, seated, his expression shifting from shock to something almost like relief. "How long?" It was all I could manage to say. Amanda began crying, mascara tracking down her cheeks. 4 months. It started at your birthday party. We never meant for it to happen." Kyle finally stood. "Doug, man, I am sorry. You know how these things are. You cannot control who you fall for." I felt something snap inside me. "Get out. Both of you. Get the hell out of my apartment now." Amanda tried to touch my arm. "I need to explain." I recoiled from her touch. "Explain what? How you cheated with my brother while planning our wedding. How you were going to marry me while pregnant with his child. What exactly needs explanation?" Kyle stepped forward. "Come on, Doug. We can figure this out like adults." I turned to him, this brother I had protected and loved my entire life. Adults do not sleep with their brothers. Fiancés. Adults do not betray family. You are both strangers to me now. They left Amanda sobbing, Kyle trying to comfort her in the hallway, until I slammed the door. I called my parents immediately, my voice shaking as I explained what happened. Mom gasped. Dad demanded everyone come to the house immediately to sort this out. The family meeting was a nightmare. We gathered in the living room where Christmas photos of us as children still sat on the mantel. Mom Laura looked shell-shocked while Dad paced the room. Kyle and Amanda sat together on the love seat, their bodies angled toward each other in unconscious intimacy. I stood by the window, unable to sit, feeling like an outsider in my own family. Laura spoke first, her voice quivering. "I cannot believe this. Kyle, how could you do this to your brother?" Kyle looked down at his hands. "It just happened, Mom. We fell in love." Dad stopped pacing. "This is a terrible situation, just terrible, but we need to be practical now." I expected my father to be furious with Kyle, to stand by me, as I had always stood by the family business. Instead, he sighed deeply and looked at me with resignation. "Kyle is going to be a father. He needs stability now. I have been thinking about the restaurant and the future of this family." "What are you saying, Dad?" I asked, dread forming in my stomach. William straightened his shoulders. "Kyle will need to support this child. He will need the income from the restaurant, and they will need a proper home." "You cannot be serious," I whispered. "Kyle will take over management of Harrington's. The transition will be difficult, but necessary, and they should have the lake house. They will need the space for the baby." I felt the second betrayal like a physical blow worse than the first. But I am the one who has worked there my entire life. I have built relationships with suppliers, modernized systems, kept the place profitable. You have always been capable, Doug. You can start over anywhere. Kyle needs this. The baby needs this. Sometimes family means sacrifice. I looked around the room. Mom was crying silently, but made no move to contradict Dad. Kyle looked stunned but not displeased. Amanda stared at the floor. So I lose my fiancé, my future child, my business, and my inheritance, all because they betrayed me. Is that your idea of family? Dad William flushed with anger. That is enough. My decision is final. You will help with the transition at the restaurant. And then you will move on. This family needs stability now, not drama. I walked out, ignoring my mother's pleas to stay and talk. In the following days, extended family members called, urging me to forgive for the sake of family unity. Only my cousin Sarah stood firmly on my side, offering her guest room when I could not bear to stay in the apartment Amanda and I had shared. Over the next few weeks, I watched as Kyle and Amanda moved into management offices at Harrington's. Dad introduced Kyle to longtime customers as the new owner. I was expected to train my brother on systems I had spent years perfecting, while Amanda redecorated my office with nursery color swatches pinned to the bulletin board. The betrayal was complete, total, and sanctioned by the family I had devoted my life to. The first month after moving into Sarah's spare bedroom, I barely functioned. I called in sick to the restaurant, unable to face the reality of training Kyle to replace me. Sarah would find me staring at the ceiling at 3 in the morning or sitting on the balcony in the rain. She never pushed, just left food, reminded me to shower, and assured me this nightmare would eventually end. One morning she slammed a coffee mug on the nightstand beside me. "Enough, Doug. Yes, they destroyed your life. Yes, it is monumentally unfair. But you do not get to destroy yourself too. Get up. Shower. We are going out for breakfast, and then you are going to figure out what comes next." Her words cut through the fog. I realized I was giving them even more power by surrendering to despair. That day I called a real estate agent and found my own apartment. I finally returned to the restaurant to formally resign, refusing Dad's offer to stay on as an employee. I would not work for the brother who took everything from me. Finding a new job proved challenging. My entire resume was Harrington's. Without the family connection, I was just another restaurant manager in a city full of them. I went to countless interviews where the same question arose. Why leave your family business? I could not tell the humiliating truth. So I gave vague answers about seeking new challenges, which sounded insincere even to me. After 20 rejections, I was contemplating leaving Boston altogether when fate intervened. I stopped for coffee at a small cafe and noticed Anthony Russo at a corner table scribbling in a notebook. Anthony had been Harrington's head chef for nearly a decade before leaving 5 years ago after a heated dispute with Dad about menu modernization. He recognized me immediately. "Doug Harrington, last I heard you were running the old place. What brings you to this side of town?" I hesitated, then decided. The truth was simpler than lies. I left Harrington's. Family complications. I am job hunting now. Anthony studied me, then pushed out a chair with his foot. "Sit. There is more to this story, and I have time." I found myself telling Anthony everything. The betrayal, Dad's decision, my unceremonious replacement. Instead of pity, Anthony listened with growing interest. "William always did favor that brother of yours," he finally said. "Terrible business sense. Your dad nearly drove me out when I suggested updating the menu to compete with newer restaurants. He insisted on keeping everything exactly as his father had done it. That place will fail within a year under your brother. That should have made me feel better, but it did not. Despite everything, Harrington's was still the restaurant I loved." Anthony tapped his notebook. "I have been developing a concept. Modern American cuisine with global influences, emphasizing local ingredients, but not bound by tradition. I have investors interested, but I need an operations partner who understands both the business and culinary sides. Someone like you." Just like that possibility flickered back into my life. Anthony and I spent the next week developing a business plan for what would become Restoration. The name was not subtle, but it fit my personal journey and our culinary mission, taking classic techniques and ingredients and transforming them into something new and vibrant. The location we found was deliberate and admittedly petty, just 3 blocks from Harrington's, in a renovated historical building with more character and better street visibility. I emptied my savings account for my portion of the investment and took out a substantial loan. Sarah introduced me to David Thompson, a successful tech entrepreneur looking to diversify into restaurants who provided the final capital we needed. While Anthony developed the menu and designed the kitchen, I focused on building the perfect team. I started with Lisa Harrington's longtime service manager who had trained me when I was just a teenager. She had called to tell me she was quitting because Kyle was cutting corners on service standards. Next came Marcus, a talented sous chef, who Kyle had demoted for questioning his decision to use cheaper meat suppliers. One by one, I connected with Harrington's best staff members who were unhappy under Kyle's management. I did not poach them directly. That would have been unprofessional. I simply let them know there would be positions available for experienced professionals who valued quality and respect in the workplace. Within 2 months, nearly a third of Harrington's veteran staff had applications in with us. The renovation moved quickly, and 8 months after the day I discovered the betrayal, Restoration opened its doors. The space balanced modern design, with warmth featuring reclaimed wood tables, artisan lighting, and an open kitchen where guests could watch culinary magic happen. Anthony's menu transformed familiar comfort foods with unexpected techniques and flavor combinations, while I developed a cocktail program that honored classic drinks while introducing innovative elements. Opening night exceeded our expectations. Food critics from every Boston publication attended along with local influencers and curious diners. Many were former Harrington regulars, eager to see what the estranged Harrington son had created. When Jack Reynolds, the notoriously difficult critic for the Boston Gazette, stopped me to shake my hand and compliment the duck confit tacos, I knew we had something special. The review that followed was glowing. Restoration does not merely restore faith in American cuisine, it elevates it to art. Doug Harrington has emerged from his family's shadow to create something entirely his own, and Boston is all the better for it. Business boomed immediately. We were booked solid for dinner 6 weeks out within our first month. The bar area became a hotspot for after-work drinks, with guests often waiting just for standing room. We expanded our hours to include brunch on weekends, which quickly became the most sought-after reservation in town. Meanwhile, reports from former colleagues still at Harrington's painted a grim picture. Kyle had no experience managing staff and alienated longtime employees with arbitrary rules and micromanagement. Amanda attempted to modernize the branding but offended traditional customers by removing historical photographs and changing the classic logo. Worst of all, Kyle tried to cut costs by switching to lower-quality meat suppliers, compromising the very thing that had made Harrington's famous. The results were predictable. Regular customers began to disappear. Online reviews mentioned declining quality and inconsistent service. Dad started showing up daily, attempting to mentor Kyle, which only created more tension. Within 6 months of my departure, Harrington's was operating at a loss for the first time in its history. I took no pleasure in this decline, but I could not deny a sense of validation. Everything I had built at Harrington's was crumbling without proper stewardship, while everything I was building at Restoration was thriving because of hard work and respect for both tradition and innovation. 18 months after opening Restoration, we had expanded twice, adding a private dining room and a specialized cocktail bar, featuring house-infused spirits and artisanal ice. We had been featured in Food and Wine, and I had recently accepted the New England Dining Award for Restaurant Manager of the Year. Anthony and I were discussing opening a second location, focusing on sustainable seafood, when Kyle called me for the first time since the betrayal. I almost declined the call, but curiosity won out. His voice sounded thin, missing the confident tone he had always carried even when failing. "Doug, I need your help. Harrington's is dying. Dad is talking about selling the building. Everything Grandpa built is about to disappear." A year ago, this call would have filled me with bitter satisfaction. Now it just made me tired. "What do you want from me, Kyle? Just meet me, please. 1 hour of your time." Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at Restoration before opening hours. Kyle looked terrible, with dark circles under his eyes and a defeated posture I had never seen in him before. More surprising was seeing our father waiting there too, looking older than his 65 years. Kyle spoke first. I messed up. Not just with you and Amanda. With everything. I am not cut out for this business, and I was too arrogant to admit it. Dad interjected. We are 3 months behind on payments to suppliers. The bank is threatening to call our loan. I had to use half my retirement savings already. I should have felt vindicated, but instead I felt a complex mix of emotions. This was still the restaurant where I had grown up, still my grandfather's legacy. But it was also the symbol of my family's betrayal. What exactly are you asking of me? Kyle looked at Dad, who nodded heavily. We want you to come back. Take over. Save Harrington's. My laugh was hollow. You want me to save the restaurant you took from me? After everything, Dad finally showed real emotion, his voice breaking. I was wrong, Doug. Terribly wrong. I thought I was protecting Kyle, providing for the baby. I did not see what was right in front of me, that you were always the heart of Harrington's. I let sentimentality cloud my business judgment, and now we are all paying for it. I thought about walking out, letting them face the consequences of their actions. I had built something new and successful. I owed them nothing. But Harrington's wasn't just theirs, it was my grandfather's dream, the place where I had learned every aspect of the business I loved. Here is what I am offering, I finally said. I will buy Harrington's at market value, which, given its current performance, is significantly less than it was worth 2 years ago. Kyle can retain 20% ownership, but he works for me starting at the bottom and earning his position. Dad publicly acknowledges his mistake to the staff and steps back to an advisory role only. And Amanda is never involved in any aspect of the business. Dad started to object to the terms, but Kyle put a hand on his arm. It is more than fair, Dad. More than I deserve. I accept, Doug. Dad wiped tears from his eyes, nodding slowly. You always were the smartest businessman in the family. Your grandfather would be proud. Within 3 months, I had merged the 2 restaurants under a parent company, maintaining their separate identities but sharing resources and staff. Harrington's returned to its traditional roots with subtle updates, while Restoration continued pushing culinary boundaries. Kyle started as a host, then moved to bartending, showing surprising dedication. The baby, a boy named Thomas, after our grandfather, became a regular visitor, bringing unexpected joy, even to me. My personal healing took longer. I could work with Kyle professionally, but our brotherly bond remained fractured. I maintained polite distance with Amanda at family gatherings. The deepest wound was with my father, whose betrayal had cut to the core of my identity. We were cordial occasionally, even warm, but the implicit trust was gone. The unexpected bright spot came 6 months after taking over Harrington's. Natalie, a regular at Restoration's bar who always ordered our seasonal old-fashioned, asked me about my story after reading a profile in Boston Magazine. Unlike the prying questions I usually deflected, her interest seemed genuine. We began talking regularly when she visited, then meeting for coffee outside of work hours. She was a literature professor with no interest in the restaurant industry beyond appreciating good food, offering a refreshing perspective untainted by my family drama. Our relationship developed slowly, built on conversation and shared interests, rather than the whirlwind passion I had experienced with Amanda. I found myself genuinely laughing again, making plans that extended beyond work, seeing a future that was not defined solely by what I had lost and gained. What surprised me most about this journey was discovering that success was not the revenge I had imagined it would be. True freedom came from breaking free of others' expectations and definitions of me. I was neither the responsible son forever in service to the family legacy, nor the victim defined by betrayal. I had become simply myself, a man who built something valuable through hard work and vision. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to discover who you truly are. The legacy I now valued was not the restaurant itself, but the principles I brought to my work: integrity, innovation, and respect for both tradition and progress. The best revenge was never about destroying those who hurt me, but building something better than they could have imagined and finding joy they could never take away again. I do not know if I will ever fully forgive my family for their betrayal. But I have found something more valuable than forgiveness: the freedom to be the best version of myself, unconstrained by others' expectations or limitations. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that ultimately led to something better in your life? Share your story in the comments below. If this journey of overcoming betrayal and building something better resonated with you, please hit like and subscribe to hear more real stories of resilience. Remember, sometimes the worst day of your life can lead to the best version of yourself. Thank you for listening, and never forget, your worth is not determined by those who failed to see it.